Hello, friends, and welcome back to Angareji Sahitya, your one stop channel for learning English literature in the easiest and most interesting way. In today's video, we are diving into the life and legacy of one of the most important thinkers in history, Francis Bacon. From his early days as a bright student to becoming a powerful politician and later a revolutionary scientist and writer, Bacon's journey is full of inspiration and ideas that changed the world. So, sit back, relax, and let's explore the world of Francis Bacon together. Friends, he was born on January 22nd, 1561 in London, England. Now, Bacon came from a rich and powerful family. His father, Sir Nicholas Bacon, had a big job in the government, and his mother, Anne Cook Bacon, was very smart and well educated. So, from the beginning, Bacon had a good support for his learning. Now, here is something interesting. When Bacon was just 12 years old, he joined Trinity College London. Friends, that's very young for college, right? At Cambridge, he studied subjects like philosophy, Latin, and science. But he didn't like how things were taught. Friends, he noticed that his students were just memorizing what old thinkers said. Instead of asking questions or trying to discover new things on their own, that really bothered him. Because of this, Bacon started to believe that real learning should come from observing the world, asking questions, and experimenting, not just copying old ideas. This way was very new way of thinking at the time, and later it became the base for what we now call the scientific method. After his studies in England, Bacon went to France to learn more about how governments and societies work. He was still very curious and wanted to understand the world better. But something sad happened. His father died suddenly. Friends, Bacon had to return to England right away. Now, since his father had passed away, Bacon needed to earn money. So, he decided to become a lawyer. Even though he started working in law, his mind was always thinking about learning science and how people understand the world. And that's what made him so special. Friends, after becoming a lawyer, Francis Bacon quickly became known as a very smart and talented man. He was great at making arguments and explaining things clearly. Because of his skills, he entered parliament in the 1850s, where he began to take part in important decisions for the country. Friends, as the time went on, Bacon worked with some very powerful people. He served under Queen Elizabeth I, and later he became a trusted advisor to King James I. He was given very important jobs, including Attorney General and Lord Chancellor, which was one of the highest positions in the government. Friends, but later in his career, Bacon got into trouble. He was accused of corruption because he accepted gifts from people who had legal cases. Bacon admitted that he had taken gifts, but he said that these gifts did not change his decisions or make him unfair. Still, this problem caused him to lose his job and end his political life. Even though this was a sad time for Bacon, it also gave him something good. Now that he was no longer working in politics, he had more time to do what he truly loved: thinking, writing, and exploring science and philosophy. This is when he began making some of his most important contributions to the world. Friends, Francis Bacon was a man who believed that people should not simply accept old ideas without thinking. He wanted people to ask questions and search for truth by looking at the real world around them. He disagreed with scholars who only followed the teachings of ancient thinkers like Aristotle without trying to discover new things for themselves. Friends, Bacon believed that real knowledge comes from experience, observation, and testing ideas. One of Bacon's greatest gifts to the world was something called the scientific method. This was a brand new way of doing science at the time. Instead of guessing or just trusting old books, Bacon said scientists should follow a step by step process to find the truth. This method includes several clear steps. First, ask a clear question about something you want to understand, then observe carefully and gather evidence. After that, do experiments to test your ideas. Next, analyze the result, and finally, Draw a conclusion based on the facts you found. It sounds like solving a puzzle by looking at each piece instead of just guessing. This new way of thinking changed science forever. Thanks to Bacon, science became more organized and reliable, and people started to use evidence instead of opinions. Friends, even today, the scientific method is the most important tool that scientists use to discover new things and understand how the world works. Friends, Francis Bacon didn't just talk about his ideas, he wrote them down so others could learn from them. His writings became very important and helped several spread his way of thinking to people all over the world. Through his books, Bacon showed why science, education, and knowledge were so important. One of his most famous books is called Novum Organum, published in 1620. In this book, Bacon clearly explained the scientific method, the step by step way to study the world using observations and experiments. He encouraged people to keep an open mind and not be afraid to explore new ideas. Another important book he wrote was The Advancement of Learning, which came out in 1605. In this book, Bacon talked about the value of education. He said that real learning should be based on facts and experience, not just old traditions. Friends, he wanted schools to teach students how to think and discover, not just remember. Bacon also wrote a creative and interesting story called New Atlantis. Published after his death in 1627, it was about a perfect society where people use science and technology to make life better. Even though it was a made up story, it showed Bacon's dream of a world where knowledge leads to peace, health, and progress. Friends, these writings were more than just books. They were powerful messages that helped shape the future. Bacon's idea showed people a new way of thinking where truth comes from evidence, not just traditions or authority. Thanks to these works, many future scientists were inspired to study the world carefully, ask questions, and find answers through observation and testing. Bacon truly helped start a new age of learning and discovery. Friends, Francis Bacon is often called the father of empiricism. This means he believed that true knowledge comes from experience and observation, not just from books or old ideas. Friends, he taught people to trust what they can see, test, and prove. This was a big change from the way people used to think, and it helped create a new way of learning. Friends, Bacon's ideas were so powerful that they inspired great scientists like Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin. These famous thinkers used Bacon's method to make their own discoveries. Bacon showed them that by asking questions and using experiments, they could understand the world in a better way. Even today, scientists around the world still follow Bacon's way of thinking. Friends, his belief in using evidence and experiments is the foundation of modern scientific research. Whether in a lab, a hospital, or out in nature, his influence can still be seen in how people study and solve problems. Bacon also helped shape a time in history called the Enlightenment. This was a period when people focused on reason, science, and progress. His ideas didn't just help science, they also impacted areas like medicine, engineering, and psychology. Because of him, the world became more curious, more thoughtful, and more open to discovery. Francis Bacon was a visionary who believed that knowledge could only grow through careful observation, experimentation, and questioning. His dedication to truth and discovery reshaped science, education, and philosophy forever. Even today, his ideas continue to inspire researchers, scientists, and thinkers worldwide. Whether you are in a science lab or simply questioning the world around you, Bacon's influence is everywhere. Thank you for watching this video on Francis Bacon. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more educational content. Stay curious and keep exploring the wonders of knowledge.